Mic in check. Actually, your foamy bit just needs to be in the mic a bit better. Hello and welcome back to the Remind podcast. My name's David Masterton and I'm joined by the wonderful Dr. Ashleigh Moreland.
Hello.
And it's going to be an interesting topic today. Something that there's been a little bit of experience going on between the two of us, or maybe I'll say a theme that's been going on.
Yeah.
And it's around how you can show compassion, kindness, dare I say it, even love to someone that hurts you.
Yeah.
Big
Fundamentally, how do you love someone even though they've hurt you?
Well, I suppose it comes down to the definition, right? You've got the hallmark side of love, the romantic love, which is, when I was growing up, still am, by the way, that it was all about it's that romantic love. It's not you can love someone. It's like this whole romance of you're in love with someone versus just showing love, which is it's a newer concept. Like, how could you love something that hurts you? How could you be okay or show compassion to something that triggers you? But as we're exploring, that's unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, that's all part of what we're doing.
Part of the journey. That's the spiritual growth, isn't it? It's so crazy because I had this revelation several years ago, and for me, it was one of the first times in my adult life I had opened a Bible, and the first thing I read was love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I was so triggered by it because my neighbors at the time, I think I've shared this story before, but my neighbors at the time were really difficult to love. Like, I'm talking middle of the night, I had been out there in my dressing gown, cracking it at them, abusing them. I was not being a loving neighbor because I was so pushed to the limit of my patience with them. Anyway, I was so triggered by that statement because I was like, I got really defensive and I wanted to justify why they didn't deserve my love. It's like, you don't understand because they did this and they do that and they do this and they keep me up and they do that. And I felt so justified in my unlovingness towards them because I had all the reasons in the world as to why they didn't deserve my love. And so this took me on this huge journey of understanding, oh my gosh, well, when you say love, what does that actually mean? When we say neighbor, like, it's very easy conversation to love someone who's easy to love. You know, it's very easy to love your best friend. It's very easy to love the people in your life who think the same way as you, who are kind to you. Very hard to love the people that we can justify don't deserve it. And therein lies the problem. So that statement, love your neighbor as yourself, what happens if your neighbor was a pedophile? How do you have love in your heart towards them? What happens if your neighbor was your ex? How do you have love in your heart towards them? So this was the start of my journey on all this, was really exploring, well, what are the conditions around who the neighbor is? Because there's no asterisk that says, as long as they're heterosexual, as long as they're like, you know,
they meet
I don't
a
know
certain
what other
criteria.
conditions I put on it. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
You've raised
the funny thing was, my neighbors. You go.
You go. Oh, no, after you.
I was going to say, the funny thing was, the reason the heterosexual came to my mind was because the neighbors that I had before these really difficult to love neighbors was this gay couple who were my favorite neighbors I think I've ever had. They used to bring my bins in and they'd be so lovely all the time. And they were so considerate and friendly. They were easy to love neighbors. But imagine if I was homophobic. They would, just by the very fact that was a gay couple, if I was homophobic, I would find them hard to love because I didn't agree with their relational choice. So when we have these circumstances where someone that we have an injustice towards, a bias towards, that challenges our belief systems, we find that hard to love. So it took me on a journey.
Well, it's all conditional in that respect. So I'll come back to that really important point that you made. That what is it to love someone? Because most people listening will have the feeling of being in love with someone, and so that's a certain
in
sort of
love, which is a chemical thing.
Absolutely. So it's like there's the infatuation, always thinking of them, wanting to touch them and hug them, and all of that. So when I first heard of this theory that you have to love everyone, I took the one thing I knew that I thought love was and said, I have to feel this way about everyone. Good luck. There's no one going to be waking up in the morning and going, wow, I'm so in love with everyone. No. But what if it was just this? What if love was the fact that you could bring some compassion, some empathy, some understanding?
A heart posture.
Yeah.
Yep.
That in itself is love. It's not like you have to adore them and want to hold them and they're the first person you think of in the morning and they're your forever person that you want to live the rest of your life with. What if it's just that? It's just the fact that when you love, it's that sort of nature of it doesn't matter what they do, it's okay. Because
see, this is an interesting one. Because that was kind of where I was really grappling. So does this mean to say that if I love someone, I should just, well, no matter what they do, it's okay because it's unconditional love? That's
it's not unconditional. Because here's the thing for me in this whole thing. You Ashleigh, or whoever in the world can do whatever you like, and if there's love, then that's okay with me. Now, whether I choose to accept it going forward, that's different, completely different, because there's still love for me. So if you want to have those things, those attitudes or the behaviors or whatever it is that is hurtful because you're hurt, because, a theme that's been coming to me this last week is hurt people and healed people heal people. Right? And you don't have to have a judgment between that, because if someone's hurt, they're going to hurt you. So if you look at that and go, you're hurting, I'm sorry for that. But you don't get to do that to me anymore. I'm going to be over here. I can still understand. I'm not going to accept it. This is not David the punching bag, like 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, keep it going. No, because this person needs love as well. So you then get to choose and create what it is that you will accept in your life. That be people, behaviors, experiences, because you're building your life. You're manifesting it every day through every decision, through every little thing that you're doing. And so are other people. And if you're okay with other people doing that, that's not up to your standard, whatever you think your standard is, high, low, whatever, that's okay.
Yeah. I love that. I had a really interesting experience recently where I had to look at my heart posture of love. And I ended up going to my Bible app, and the most famous scripture on love, which is quoted at weddings all over the place. Love is patient, love is kind, love is, that scripture is quoted at weddings all over the place even for non-Christians. It's been taken and put into the secular world. So I went to, that's 1 Corinthians 13, and I went to my Bible app where I can translate that passage and read all the different translations of it. So it's the same thing, it's just written in different ways.
Okay.
And I came across this one translation that really put it into very, very clear, easy to understand language. And the things that came up were, I loved that it really gave a clear picture of what love is. So the first thing is, if I were to speak with eloquence in earth's many languages and in the heavenly tongues of angels, yet I didn't express myself with love, then my words would be reduced to the hollow sound of nothing more than a clanging cymbal. So the first thing is, if we are speaking, we can be saying all the nice words, we can be saying the right things, we can be doing the right things, but if we are not expressing those words with a heart posture of love, then they're empty words and they mean nothing. That's effectively what that's saying. So that was really eye-opening for me, because it takes us back to people pleasing, and it takes us back to saying the right things and doing the right thing and having the right words and using the big language. But if our heart posture is in a posture of fear, and we're only saying those things because we don't want to upset someone else, or we're only saying those things because we want someone to like us, well, then they're empty words. They mean nothing. And that's what that's saying. So
it's a performance.
It is a performance, exactly. So that was the first one. The next one was really interesting. It was, if I were to have the gift of prophecy. So prophecy is equivalent, like the equivalent of, like, let's say, psychic. Prophecy being able to receive prophetic words, see the unseen, etc., etc. Yeah, if I were to have the gift of prophecy with a profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, and if I possessed unending supernatural knowledge, and if I had the greatest gift of faith that could move mountains, but have never learned to love, then I am nothing. So that was a big kick up the bum as well. It's like, this is not about how well you can perform and how well you can do all these things. If you haven't learned to love, if your heart is still not postured towards love, then all of that means nothing. Again, it's a performance. I love that I hadn't connected the word performance to this, but you're right, absolutely. The next one even took it further. If I were to be so generous as to give away everything I owned to feed the poor, and even to offer my body to be burned as a martyr, without the pure motive of love, I would gain nothing of value. Again, it's a heart posture. So then it went into, like, perfect love. So love never stops loving. It extends beyond the gifts, which eventually fade away. It's more enduring than words, which will one day fall silent. Love remains long after words of knowledge are forgotten. And it just went on to give the most beautiful picture of what love looks like. It's large, it's incredibly patient, it's gentle, it's consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. It doesn't brag about achievements or inflate its own importance. It doesn't traffic shame and disrespect. It doesn't selfishly seek its own honor. It's not easily irritated. It's not quick to take offense. It joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. All of this just painted such a clear picture for me of what love looks like. And what that did for me is it made me reflect on how because I'd been in love before. I'd been married before. We loved each other, but it didn't look like that. It looked like manipulation. It looked like conflict. It looked like toxic behaviors. It looked like abuse. It looked like really good moments of passion and then really low moments of, like, hardcore mess. But we called it love because that's what we knew love to be. Where did we learn that? From what we learned growing up.
How's it modelled? Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, I just talked a lot then, but that to me was pretty eye-opening, because how do you love someone who's hurt you? It's an inner healing journey. It's all about the heart posture. It's all about...
It is. And I, as you're reading all of that, I found a lot of similarities between intention and love at this point.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel that that the two of them go hand in hand. So when you're doing all these things, when you're saying all these things, what are you intending to do? Are you
Yeah.
actually being the words? Are you an vibrational match to what you're saying, or are you performing
Yeah.
because you're hoping, you're aspiring to be that?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
two ways. And so if someone does hurt you and you kind of feel there's probably a reason for it, they're probably hurting for some reason, and you can feel the hurt, you can feel the disappointment, you can feel all of that, but then just sort of go, there's something behind it. You're coming at it with compassion and empathy, and your words match that. Okay, in my
Yeah.
mind, that's love,
Yeah.
right? It's not as though I
Yeah.
have to have them there with me and I have to fix them. It's not like I have to,
Not
change the
outside of you, it's
situation.
inside of you.
What's that?
Yeah. It's not what's outside of you, it's what's inside of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with trying to reconcile things, is that people think that they have to make right the relationships, or they're waiting for an apology, or there's something that's outside of them that they're waiting on for someone to change, for someone to act differently, for someone to be any different than what they are, before they will shift their heart posture, resolve what's happening within them, and actually come into right relationship in their own
But here's the
heart.
thing: at that point, you're not loving them. You're loving the fact that you're right. You're loving the fact that they're wrong. You're not loving them. If the
Help me
heart posture
understand.
changes, right, at the time that they admit that they're wrong, what are you loving?
Ah, yes. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So it's, yeah, sorry, I had to get on the same wavelength.
Sure.
So, yeah, I completely agree. And what I'm saying is, if you can separate yourself from what's happening out there and come and rectify what's happening in here, what's happening in us as a result of what's happening out there, then we can recognize that someone else isn't behaving in that way because of us necessarily. They're behaving in that way because of something that's happening in them. And we can separate ourselves from that. And it's all about shame, actually. I find people have a really poor understanding of shame in general. We had the most incredible experience in Rise and Thrive recently. I got the participants to do something I've never done before. Now, these guys were all complete strangers to each other. And one of the things I got them to do was to pair up and connect into their own hearts and sit there and actually see what are the gifts. If you were created for a purpose and a reason on this earth, and you have certain gifts that are within you that support you to leave the world a better place, what is it that my soul recognizes in your soul as your gifts? And I just got them to do this activity with each other, which effectively, these people were strangers. I think that by this time they'd spent maybe 16 hours together ever in their whole entire lives. And most of the time I was the one talking. And so they did this activity, and one of the participants was not able to write anything about her partner. She just went blank. She couldn't write anything. And everyone else had paired up, and they had this beautiful experience where they shared the gift they saw in them, and it was so lovely and beautiful. And this one particular pair, they had this experience where she was not able to access anything and wasn't able to write anything, come up with anything. And the really interesting thing to observe was that there's a tendency for the other person to want to go, oh, is that because there's nothing good about me? Is that because you can't see anything good in me? What have I done wrong? I mustn't be a good enough person. I mustn't be. But it's not about them at all. What it actually was about a trauma that this person had experienced right back in her childhood in school, where she was put on the spot. She had to perform, and the teacher would berate her. So she put her whole heart and soul on display, and she was absolutely berated and shamed in that moment. And so her body was remembering this time when she was shamed publicly. And so when she knew that she then had to share this in front of our group, her body went into a trauma response and complete freeze. And so in that case, it was this beautiful conversation and very eye-opening for everyone else in the group to go, oh my gosh, so often when someone else shuts down, when someone else communicates in an unhealthy way, when someone else does this or does that, I make it about me. And it was so powerful for our group to recognize that it was not about that person. It was actually a live experience of a trauma response in her.
Absolutely.
And so all of a sudden, instead of feeling hurt, there was compassion, there was understanding, there was all those beautiful heart posture of love qualities that we're looking to unlock. So I see this massively as being able to understand what's happening in the other person. It doesn't make what they've done okay. You know, I look at my ex and go, I didn't deserve any of that. And it doesn't make what he's done okay, but it's actually on me to work through my stuff, set boundaries, and have a heart posture of love.
It's pretty powerful. And I think you raise a good point, because everyone's got their perception of how they see things and or people. And that will be through how they've experienced life. So if you had to go around convincing everyone that you're a good person or things like that, you're going to be spending a lot of time potentially coming up against people's traumas. And it's going to be okay.
Always.
Yeah. And it's going to be okay that if that person sees you that way, okay, let them. It doesn't mean that unless you're a people pleaser, you're going to have to change that mindset in them. Otherwise, you won't be able to let it go. But just sort of know that, okay, they see that. It's their experience. That's what it is. Okay. And so if you love someone, you can sort of go, all right, that's fine. Doesn't mean you have to go back for seconds or thirds or fourths or fifths.
You can release it, because you can recognize, okay, so I have a really, really exciting update for you, Dave.
Oh.
They have names.
Okay.
So this is Sally, and this is Harry. And this is when Harry met Sally.
Love it. I don't think we should reenact the most, the most important scene of that movie.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Talk about faking it. I mean, that movie had a great scene of faking it.
This is so relevant because, and I went through this with a client yesterday. If Sally is the soul part of us. Sally is the part of us that has all the wisdom and is very conscious and very aware and connected to all that is. Sally is the love. Harry is the body. This is the flesh. Harry is the one who's dealing with compulsive urges. Harry's the one who gets fixated on justice and righteousness and wants to protect and defend and wants to stay safe and doesn't want anything to change and all that kind of stuff. The reality is, while we are experiencing this human life, we need to do life like this. Harry and Sally have to be able to coexist together in harmonious relationship, because our soul has to integrate with our human body. And I had this revelation this week that when it comes to love, I, for so much of my life, didn't even know Sally existed. I had no concept of the spiritual kind of love that Sally was. I'd never experienced it before. I had no frame of reference for it. And so my whole life, it was just Harry. It was just Harry trying to do life, trying to do... Now, Harry's version of love is conditions, control, is protect and defend, is keep me safe, protect my heart, certainty. Harry can only see what his human eyes can see, and it's all about Harry. well, you said this and you said that and you didn't do this. And if you loved me, then you'd. And that was all how Harry had controlled my life. Now, the love that I had earlier in my life was all conditional. I had to be a certain way. I had to speak a certain way. I had to look a certain way. And if all of these criteria were met, then I was safe and I was loved. Because Sally was nowhere to be seen. I had no access to Sally. I didn't even know that kind of love existed. So Harry gave me so many insights into that, because Harry can't love someone who hurt them, because Harry is only preoccupied with protecting Harry from not getting hurt again. And so why would Harry forgive that person? Because don't you know what they did? And what if they do it again? And Harry is not only going to not forgive that person because they might do it again, but now Harry is going to take that information and apply it to every other person. Because what if they do it? And he's only preoccupied with making sure he's safe.
Yeah.
So for me, this whole experience is relationship with Sally is about going, hey, wow, that whole 1 Corinthians 13, that's the spiritual definition of love. Spiritually, that's Sally love. And Sally actually exists in all of us. And I had this huge revelation. Who would have thought these 2 random little props would be so life-changing for me and everyone I work with? But the idea is that, so literally I'm telling people what I charge thousands of dollars with, clients who work with me. This is literally all there is to it. It's Sally, who has all that wisdom, coming into peaceful, harmonious relationship with Harry. It's not about only living as Sally, because that's bypassing. We still have a human body. We still experience human things. We can't do life just as Sally. So Harry's going to be there while ever we have this flesh body, while ever we're doing human relationships and having to go to work and having to pay bills and do that. Harry's still got to be part of that. And so how does Harry and Sally have harmonious relationship? Because that's how you love people who hurt you. It's Sally at the wheel. I love that. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to go to the YouTube channel and watch the video, because all that's going to make a whole lot more sense. So please jump on and watch the actual video version of that little segment, because, we're 26 minutes in. So go and watch that little segment.
But it's you're never going to get rid of Harry. I mean, it is there. Even if you try and bypass. Even if you try to bypass, you're not bypassing it. You're acting, or you're performing like you're bypassing. You're saying the right things, but your energy and your attention doesn't keep up. So go back to before, your words are hollow if you're performing. Unless when you're performing, I'm not going to get into that. But the main thing is that if your intention is not matched with it, then it's just words. Just words.
Yeah.
But it's very sorry, there's a lag in this recording, so you go.
If that's love and that's Sally, Harry's the one saying the words. So if Harry's saying all the right words but not as love as Sally, then it's empty. We're not actually experiencing the love. So, that makes so much. I'm such a visual learner, so I need some kind of visual frame of reference to bring words and concepts to life.
I everything that you said, it was definitely, I've experienced that, 100%. It was that going through, especially for me, it was sort of like I went through life with transactions. Like even in my first marriage, we had this thing called, I created this thing called brownie points, right? I do this for you, you do this for me, and it was so highly conditional. But the thing about sort of Harry, the only time Harry can move on and forgive is if he can even things out.
Yes.
And I found that. So how do people make up for okay, there's an indiscretion or there's an issue. Instead of coming at compassion, well, if I can even the scoreboard, then I can move on. It's that kind of sort of tit for tat. Now, you might be saying, I've forgiven you or I've forgiven this, but if it keeps on coming up, then you haven't necessarily forgiven it. Like, because for me, forgiving is that unconditional sort of, it is, it was, and it's okay.
I just had a light bulb moment. It's that unconditional. And then you said it is. Sally is spiritual. It is done. Literally, amen means it is done.
It is.
And so forgiveness isn't just the words of, okay, fine, I forgive you, but still harboring it and still remembering it and still there in the notebook.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I forgive you, it is done. It's wiped from the record. That's amen. That's literally what she says.
I mean, it doesn't need to be wiped from the record. It can be there, but it just is. It is a thing that sort of, it's like you can look at the sky, you can look at trees, and it is. You know, there's air around, it is. This thing happened, it is. That's the difference between tolerance and acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a mega, like this is a mega concept. But it comes down to how do you
this morning that we could jump on and talk about something like love in one episode.
Yeah.
It's like literally the biggest concept in all of humanity and existence. But
definitely.
Smash it out the net.
But it's like we're talking about love in this specific episode in a very specific way around how do you deal with things that trigger your pain body, that people hurt you, your emotions, it's not fair, or, you know, why is it that we get so much joy out of justice, out of, you know, predicting what's going to happen and being right? Because I say to a lot of people, I'm happy to be wrong, but I love being right. Like it is something that's, it's still there. It's not like I predict something that's going to happen and I'm right and I'm neutral. No, I'm the smirky ass. It still feels good. But my life.
I told you so. Good dose of I told you so.
Yeah, if we could just create a dance around it. I told you so. I told you so. Those things don't disappear. It's just you're not living your life for those. It happens. It's when the intention shifts. So I suppose it comes back to, let's just say you're resonating to the fact that maybe you're aspiring to feel this way, but you can't, not just yet. Mm-hmm. Where to next?
Well, people are going to be at many different levels on that spectrum, right? So I find it hard to believe that people will have come across our podcast and made it to episode 61 if they had no awareness of Sally. But maybe, maybe someone's just coming in at this episode and they only have awareness of the Harry in them running their life. But for most people, they're on this journey of they're starting to at least know that Sally exists.
Mm-hmm.
And Sally has these big aspirations and these desires that drive them to want more for their life, to want to be better, to stop letting Harry take the wheel and leave a trail of destruction in their relationships and leave a trail of destruction in their mental health and leave a trail of destruction in their career or in their parenting. So as people start to have an awareness that Sally's there, and an awareness that they don't want Harry to continue wreaking havoc in their life anymore, they just don't know how do I know who I want to be, but I don't know how to get there. I don't know how to be that. And for me, that's my expertise, is supporting people to first of all recognize who they want to be, not who they don't, and bridging the gap. So a lot of that is processing the trauma responses at the nervous system level, rewriting the stories at the unconscious mind level, and coming back into harmonious relationship where when we're like this, we have a complete sense of self. we feel whole again because we're integrated.
Well, I would say that how did I start in this whole point? Because I was pretty happy with the kind of person I was up until the point where I realised I don't really think I know what love is, but that's for a future David to worry about. And so this
When was
was
that? Like,
this was
was there a
before
breaking point for you?
well, that was always in the background. There was almost like and so this sort of started probably, 7 years ago. And it's sort of like I knew that there was this issue with me about I was very conditional when I would say the words, I love you. I'd always been that way. Almost to the point where I felt if people said it every time, all the time, to anyone, it's all like you're just throwing it away. Right. And that was my perception only. But I could only say it to my partner, my wife.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And then as I'm saying it, it became less about meaning. There might be times when I'd say it and I really love you. But most of the time it was routine. And it gets to a point in a relationship where if it becomes routine, at least for one person, if you stop saying it, something's wrong. And you don't want to have that argument, so you just got to keep on saying it.
So did you ever feel the words?
Very little.
If you know how you say, if it's routine, it's
very
empty.
Little.
But would you ever feel love in your body as expressing those words?
Very little.
Yeah, wow.
I would love situations. I would love the way I felt around certain things.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, I really love, and if that person created an environment or something that made me feel that way, I would say, I love you. But what I didn't recognize at the time is I love the way I feel based on what you've done.
Yeah.
Even when we had my kids and their mother would say, don't you get like this heart bursting sensation every time you look at them? And I'm like, no, I don't. And so
that's a really good point for our listeners, is for them to answer that question within themselves. When you think about love and think about those situations where you tune into love and go, wow, I love you. I love that. I love this. Do you have an awareness of the sensations in your body of love? And if you do or don't, that's really important. That's important for you to know, but it's also a really important part of unlocking where you are in your journey. Because if you feel nothing, it's actually really common for men. That's a really common thing for men. Something I hear all the time is they'll say, I know I love my wife and kids because I'd literally die and kill for them, but I have no idea what that feels like. And I just want to feel. I just want to be able to feel something. Because the wife would spiral into a shame spiral and get really upset, feeling like he doesn't love her because he says he doesn't feel anything. And she thinks that's because he doesn't really love her. And he's like, but I do. I would die for her. I don't feel. My body doesn't feel. I don't know what that feels like. So I think that's a really powerful self-awareness check-in for people listening, is what does love feel like in your body?
Or when do you feel loved?
Yeah.
Right. And when you look at someone, do you love them, or do you love what they do, or do you love what they bring? And it could be a subconscious. It's not a nasty, dirty thing. If someone makes you feel a certain way when it comes to what they do, well, imagine could you love that person when they're not doing that?
Yes. Yeah.
And imagine they're doing the things that trigger you the most. Can you still love them? That's a bit of a thing. But for me to start off with, to go from being nowhere to where I am today, it was literally when Harry met Sally. It was Harry having to find Sally. And there had to be a whole lot of, I suppose, awareness around where I was at, and it built and built and built. And it did start off with trying to understand the words that other people were saying. That was really important.
Yeah.
It's not me saying it, but the words people were saying. How do I sort of connect with that?
Yeah.
And then from there, it was, how do I start to feel that without the words? Because there is a sense of, for me personally, I had to perform to get to where I am today. I had to say the words without the meaning because I aspired
because they
to.
got you the outcome that the work that you needed. Yes. Yeah. So I'm getting a better understanding of what you mean by transaction.
Yeah. So I'd have to. So if I wanted to be an energetic match to this feeling, right? I started by saying the words first because there was no hope in hell I was going to feel them first without doing it. Because for my personal journey, it was about vulnerability. I was a closed ass shop, and the reason why I couldn't feel, because I didn't want to feel vulnerable. I didn't want to think that anyone could stuff with me. I wanted to be something that was impenetrable as a protection. And I'm probably sure there's a few other guys out there that probably feel the same way. But for me to actually say the words, even though I couldn't mean it yet, was a big step in vulnerability to open the door to that. But
and how did your partners respond to that?
I did this
Were they happier because they were hearing what they needed to hear?
No, see, I did this after I'd left my second wife. This all started after. This whole journey I've been
so
solo.
who were you saying the words
Family. Outside of my kids.
Sorry. So how did your family and kids respond to hearing the words they needed to hear without the heart, like without the feeling and sensation of love behind the words? Did it sort of fill the need for them?
I'm not entirely sure. I think there was a bit of skepticism at the start. Okay. I think they, but also I think they were sort of proud that maybe I was tackling something that was pretty deep. Like I've always said to the kids, and I love my kids deeper now than I have before. I've always been able to say to my kids, I love you. Right.
Yeah.
But there was this moment where I had to, and again, vulnerability is part of opening up, because if you protect yourself and if you close off vulnerability, that's a key ingredient for love. It's a key ingredient for acceptance.
Absolutely.
It's a key ingredient to meet Sally, right? There's all these little gates.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Because the wall was built by Harry. Sally has no walls. So if we're going to access actual love, we have to break down the walls. And that's the vulnerability. The vulnerability is Sally. And we have to break down Harry's walls that he's built to try and protect and defend.
Yeah, which Harry's doing the best he can with what he's got.
Yeah.
To take care of it. It's a team effort. It's going to be Harry and Sally together going forward.
Yeah.
And so for me, there
heaven
was...
help the people who are new to our podcast who are going, who the hell is Harry and Sally? And why is
more to
come. Toilet roll on my screen?
But it was just fascinating. There is that, I've said before, sometimes you do have to fake it to make it. And that for me was part of that. I had to say the words, because even though I wasn't an energetic match to those words, it was the intention that I want to be going there.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that by trying to level this wall, which is vulnerability, which was a stepping stone to get me further. And then from there,
the bridge.
Yeah, it's a way of starting it. Now, if I was just talking about vulnerability, and if I was just talking about, because I could easily fix the persona of who I was by just simply saying those three words to anyone and everyone, and like, oh, hallelujah, you're fixed. But I couldn't, I wouldn't. And so it's also being very authentic. So if you can take these steps and sort of go, what am I actually feeling and what am I actually expressing? Do they match, or am I faking it?
Yes.
When you can close the gap on that. And some people might go, I don't like the person that you are. It's like, okay, but the person I am right now is the person I am right now. It might be unhealed. It might be healing. It might be whatever it is. But if you're going to judge me my entire life based on this one thing, then okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm going to be that tomorrow.
And that's such a great point. Yep. That's such a great point, because if you have had walls up your whole life and you have loved, oh man, it's even making so much sense for me as we process this out loud, is that the people in my life previously knew me as Harry. They knew Harry Ash. And the way that Harry loved, which was self-serving for protection. It was people-pleasing for protection and safety and certainty. And that's how Harry version of me loved. And so the really interesting thing is I had an ex say to me recently that they felt like I still loved them. But they were thinking that the love that I had was Harry love. But Harry's love was manipulative and toxic and really, really transactional and conditional and all these things, without recognizing that through my inner healing journey, I've knocked down the walls between my heart and them. And that had to happen to achieve forgiveness and to achieve me pouring out the poison that I held through resentment and hurt and shame and anger and all those things towards them. And so I do have love. I have love for them, but it's Sally love now. And what's confusing for the people around us is that they don't know the difference. They just think that their only definition of love is the love that they know. So when we transition from Harry love to Sally love, and it starts showing up differently, all of a sudden the people around us start to go, I don't know who you are. I don't recognize you. I don't like this, because this is the person that I fell in love with.
Or
They
I'm
want you to be
comfortable
better.
with.
They want you to heal. Yeah, that I'm familiar. This is the kind of love. This is the way we do love. This is how we have relationship. It's my Harry and your Harry. And when you show up as Sally, my Harry doesn't know how to be in relationship with your Sally. And I know you're calling out my Sally. But then that triggers them into their own healing journey. So that's
up goes
huge.
a new wall.
I'm having so many fireworks. I needed to talk about this today, Dave, because I clearly had to process this in my own mind and get more clarity on these things. So,
and look,
so cool.
I think to add to that, that's really important, because it's sort of like, if you can aspire for Sally love, but if you're not doing the work, you're only going to vibrate at the Harry love, right?
Yes.
If you can sort of say, I'm looking for someone who's open and vulnerable and healed and all of that. But if you're if you're not doing it yourself, then it's going to be very, very grinding. But you can sort of say, but I want this and I need this and da-da-da-da. But I've got all these triggers over here that I may be aware of or not aware of. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work through that, but people go, but no.
Yeah.
I really want it, and I really mean it. I really want that.
Yes.
I really. And it's like, okay, well, you can mean that, but if you mean it and you don't put action to it, and this is a David first, meaning without action is just dreaming. You're fucking dreaming it.
You heard it here first, people. You heard it here first.
And
love it. I love that. And it's because it's their Harry that feels so unsafe, that Harry's like, this is what a healthy, safe relationship will look like. This is what I need to be safe. But they're not recognizing that they're asking someone else's Sally to come and be in relationship with their Harry just so they're safe. But Sally's not going to show up for a Harry. Sally's going to demand a Sally. I'm going to need another Sally. I need another toilet roll. Sally needs a Sally.
There's a sponsorship
Sally's
opportunity in there.
For a Harry.
Yeah. And look, and so here's the thing. I'll come back to the whole thing of being, that whole thing of meaning with no action is dreaming. You got to dream first, right? But when you stay in the energy of just meaning it, and you don't, and you can't, and it's impossible to add action to it, or you feel as though you are, but you just keep on circling or on a treadmill, then it's not the right action. You're actually not progressing in that area.
Yeah.
And so, but it's very important not to sort of can dreaming. It's important for me not to can the fake it till you make it, because that is a key
Yeah.
point, a key step. But if you don't get off that
So
step,
important.
you're stationary. Got to keep on going.
Yeah, there's no expansion. One of my mentors, I had a session with recently, and a huge part, so he mentors me a lot spiritually in this, and in my Sally. He mentors my Sally.
Nice.
And when we were having this conversation, he said, Ash, Sally feels like if we are not expanding, we're dying. They're the only options.
You're
If
moving
we're
in
not
one direction.
expanding and growing, we're dying, because this is a universal law. It is a universal law. We cannot change it. We can't fight against it. It's like saying, well, I can jump out of a window and gravity's not going to send me to the ground and die. If I jump out the window, there's a universal law that says I'm in a bit of trouble.
I'm going to enjoy the fall and I'm going to hate the stop.
It's as true as gravity. And he goes, that's why when people set goals, but then the action is the thing that creates the expansion and growth. So people can dream, people can have these goals, people can be ideas people can have billion-dollar ideas that never manifest because they're missing the action. And it's Sally that drives the action and has that inspired drive to expand and grow, that Harry is like, but what if we fail? And what if this? And what if that? I've got to protect you from that scary judgment that someone might say. And what if they say this? And so this whole thing is about coming back into harmonious relationship and having space for both of them, where Sally is like, yep, we can do this. And Harry needs the reassurance to be able to move through that.
And the funny thing is, at the start of the healing journey, Harry never gets assurance. Never.
No.
And that's part of it. You have to.
Yep.
And my heart goes out.
The entire process that I take people through.
Yeah, my heart goes out to anyone who thinks the action is scary, because it is fucking scary. It is big. It is. It's the scariest thing. It's the scariest thing you're ever going to deal with, right? Because it's a you. It's you v you, right? It's your Harry versus Sally. Yeah. But Harry would do anything if it had certainty. Harry would knock down all the walls and go and jump into that new career or that new partner or that new thing if it knew the certainty of that you would be loved with that new person, or that you would get your idea. And he would absolutely jump, or he or she, I know we're talking about Harry here, but this is what Harry represents. He would jump into anything that had certainty. Well, you're not going to get it, because part of that is part of this journey, which seems to be a common theme for everyone, is using and is connecting to Sally of your own free will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Through everything else. And so it's brutal. And there's going to be these things, but when you start to face some of these walls and you go through that hurt, not just cover it over, go through the hurt, you will meet Sally, and you'll see Sally a little bit more, and 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 a little bit more.
Yeah,
because
so she needs to trust to be able to come back. That's it. There has to be mutual trust. There has to be space for both to have a voice.
Absolutely, because it's
what a
somewhat
great episode.
It is
great. So
it's
good.
Been brilliant. We could go for another couple of hours, but we probably need to wrap it up.
I know, exactly. And I'm wondering, I feel like we're incomplete, and I feel like there's so much more, but it's such a spiral and rabbit hole. I would invite our listeners, if you have watched this, if you've listened to this, and it feels like we're halfway through a conversation, it feels like you have questions about this, or you've got case studies or scenarios, or you want to know something or hear something, let us know. You are going to have to get back to us. Let us know, where do you want this conversation to go? What are the questions that are coming up for you as a result of hearing this and listening to this? Because, gosh, did we just pull off the biggest attempt at trying to eat an elephant? One chew at a time.
I've got a little spoon.
Elephant.
Yeah.
So where do you want us to go next? We'd love to hear from you. And
That's
just a
it.
reminder, guys, we don't get paid for this. We don't, like, this is literally our contribution to humanity and our divine service. So let us be of service by communicating with us so that we know how you would like to be served. We thank you for sharing these resources with people. We thank you for being here with us. And you can help us to help humanity by sharing it, by engaging with it, telling the algorithm that you want more people to be exposed to this stuff because it really
like
is
and
making a big
subscribe.
difference. Like and subscribe and comment and share and post and tag and all the things. That is way better payment than money right now, because we know that that's going to reach the people who really need this.
And if there's something that you don't necessarily don't agree with, let us know. Happy to hear that as well.
Absolutely.
Just engage with us. All right. Until next week. 100%. Next week's episode should be interesting. I'm sure it'll have sort of something love related, maybe in a little bit of a different curve. But again, guys, let us know in the comments. We record a couple of weeks in advance anyway, so we'll absolutely get to it when we can. But let us know. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.